Hello, everyone, and thank you for watching our Graduate Student Life Design Workshop series. I'm your host, Tracy Garner, and I'm a Life Design Coordinator with the Life Design Center at the College of Charleston. These videos are slightly edited versions of our live hybrid workshops. You won't be able to interact with others, but you'll be able to get a taste of what we do at the live workshops. We typically hold workshops in hybrid format from 12 to 1 every other Friday over Zoom and in the Life Design Lab, Tape 129, as well as one Wednesday per month from 6 to 7 p.m. in virtual format only, both during the academic year. Today, we'll be translating your academic experience for broader career paths. This is a continuation of conversations we've had in prior workshops and that we've discussed in prior videos. If you missed either the Designing for MIEPA, that's Meaning, Impact, Expression, Purpose, and Autonomy, or the Designing Your Career Beyond Academia workshop that this one builds from, or you haven't checked out those videos yet, you should check out the non-interactive versions of those workshops on our YouTube channel or hub page and do some of the activities in those videos and then come back to this one. You'll get a lot more out of these activities today once you do that. So today we're first going to introduce you to transferable skills, and I describe why they're so important in your career search outside of academia. We're then going to compare and contrast CVs versus resumes. These are two different ways of telling the same story just for different audiences. And then finally, we're going to work on actually translating part of your CV into an easily digestible format that non-academic employers can appreciate. By the end of this session, you'll be able to articulate transferable skills that you've gained throughout your academic work. You'll be able to translate discipline-specific language into language that resonates with employers. And finally, and most importantly, you'll be able to frame your strengths, skills, and accomplishments in a way that makes employers interested in you specifically. Today, we'll explore how to make your academic story legible and compelling to employers outside of the academy without losing your authenticity or values. It's vitally important to first identify your values, assumptions, and constraints and have an idea of where to start your journey in order to find a job that's most aligned with your values. Starting at this stage of the game where we are now without doing the proper legwork beforehand does increase the likelihood of finding a position that might not be the greatest fit. We'd like to avoid that if at all possible. And that's why if you haven't been to those prior workshops or viewed those prior videos, you might want to go ahead and do that first so that you come to this stage of the game having that prior legwork done already. When I use the term industry in this workshop, I mean anything outside of faculty positions, and this includes higher ed administration. I'm not just referring to factory or research and development work. Academia and industry positions use different language to describe similar skills, competencies, and interests. The goal here isn't to erase your academic identity. I'm not asking you to hide your advanced degree. Rather, I'm encouraging you to reframe the skills and accomplishments you accumulated during your academic career in ways that non-academic employers can understand and appreciate. By the end of this workshop, you'll have tools you can use to strengthen your career portfolio and clarify your evolving professional identity. We'll be working with the life design tools of curiosity, empathy, reframing, storytelling, mindfulness of process, and prototyping today. I encourage you to be curious and empathetic towards yourselves because job searches can be demoralizing even in the best of circumstances. I also invite you to be curious and empathetic towards potential employers in terms of what they need, what they want, and what they're looking for. Reframing and storytelling will be our top power tools in the designer's toolbox that we're going to rely upon today. These tools help us convey our career story, strength, and skills to non-academic employers in ways that they can appreciate. Prototyping, or bias towards action, allows us to try out various framings to see what communicates our message most effectively. Finally, mindfulness of process, which is being self-aware and taking steps that increase coherence in our lives, is crucial to maintain throughout this process so that we can evaluate our progress and figure out what adjustments might be necessary to propel us on our desired path. What are transferable skills? The basic definition of a transferable skill is a skill or competency that you acquire during any activity that can be implemented in a desired employment context. One important thing to note is this does not need to be paid employment. Any skills you developed as a result of your schoolwork, unpaid research experience, or if you had a paid RA-ship or volunteer work do count as well, so be sure to highlight those. The other important thing to note, and most relevant for our purposes, is that graduate students have a ton of skills that can usefully be transferred to multiple career options after graduation. What are the skills that non-academic employers are looking for? Let's first talk about technical or domain-specific skills. A lot of these skills are going to apply regardless of the field. Some of them may not apply, particularly if you're in an arts or humanities field. Some of these are going to look a little bit different than I've described them here. If you see something that doesn't seem like it resonates with you, think about your particular discipline and see if there's a way that you can reframe it to make it work. First of all, a lot of folks, particularly those in the sciences, do coding, whether it's in order to do statistical analyses or to write applications or do IT work. Data analysis, both quantitative and qualitative, is highly sought after. Particularly for those folks in lab-based sciences, bench work, whatever you do in the process of designing and carrying out experiments. Survey development and administration is particularly important for those in the social sciences, business, education, qualitative research if you've done interviews or focus groups, data management. This one's massive for any student, regardless of your field or discipline. Critical and analytical thinking is one of the major skills that non-academic employers are looking for. Budget management, grants application and administration is massive. And finally, if you've done any sort of research project, whether it's working for a supervisor, done a research project for one of your classes, or a thesis or a dissertation, you've managed a research project. You've developed it and managed it from the ground up. And that is massive because that proves that you can manage projects. We also want to highlight the behavioral skills that you would have developed during your academic career. By behavioral skills, I mean those skills that are important regardless of the field or domain. These skills include things like communication to a variety of audiences, teaching, training, or mentoring. A big one here is teamwork, collaboration, relationship building. We also have adaptability and flexibility. And if you participate in life design programming, this is something we really try to helping them be more adaptable and flexible to rapidly changing circumstances. Problem solving. Any employer, regardless of the domain, is going to want their employees to be able to solve problems and take initiative and independence in the process. Leadership and management skills, innovation, dependability, time and budget management, all of these behavioral skills, as well as most of the listed technical skills, are going to be valued by most employers regardless of the sector or field. Now, granted, those in the arts probably aren't going to care a whole lot about whether you can do a chemistry experiment or not. The extent to which these might be emphasized might differ based on the sector or field, but the basic nature of the skills themselves aren't very different. So what do I mean when I say translating your academic experience? Consider this example line from a CV. We've got somebody that's taught undergraduate biology courses. Let's say that they were the instructor of record, so they developed the curriculum from the ground up and they graded exams and assignments. What transferable skills can you see that come out of this one-line CV bullet point? We see teaching. That gives you experience in training. You could train a new employee on a process or train a group of people on a new process that you're implementing. Curriculum development, you can translate that to development of training programming. If you're teaching or training somebody or working with them as you would with a student when you're teaching, that's mentoring experience. You've graded exams and assignments. You've participated in assessment and evaluation. Finally, by teaching those undergraduate biology courses, that lecturing experience gives you experience in communicating to diverse audiences and instructing them either on a knowledge base, a particular topic that they need to know about, or a particular procedure that they need to do. So now that we've talked about what transferable skills are generally, let's discuss how the hiring process differs between academia and industry, including higher ed administration in industry. One of the major distinctions between academic and non-academic employers, besides the setting, are the norms that govern how you get the job in the first place. Universities will use CVs, which are curriculum vitae, to describe your qualifications and achievements for faculty positions. You'll also see these if you apply for jobs in Europe. For purposes of this discussion, let's assume you're going to stay in the US. In the US, most industry employers use resumes instead, which is essentially a highly curated version of your CV. One important caveat here, any position that you apply for with the federal government, and that includes most national labs, their application process in practice looks like a cross between a CV and a resume. The document will be as long or even longer than a CV because they want to see every little thing from the minute you took, your first day on your very first job out of high school. It's structured more like a resume in terms of how the bullet points are structured, though. If working with the federal government is something that you're interested in doing, that's a whole process in and of itself. I would recommend either checking with the Career Center or Googling online, or I'd be willing to help you walk through it as well. Let's talk about the major differences between CVs and resumes. As we talked about before, the audience for a CV is going to be mostly academics, whereas resumes, their audience is going to be non-academic employers. We also discussed that scope of your CV is comprehensive. It's not uncommon for PhD candidates to have CVs that are 4 to 5 pages long, if not longer. If you get to the point where you're a full professor, your CV could be 10, 12, 15 pages long because academic employers expect you to list everything, every single degree, every single publication, every single class you've taught, all the research projects you've worked on, all the committees you served on, all the grants and other awards or honors you've received, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. On the other hand, your CV is going to be highly curated. You'll typically have different versions of resumes highlighting different things for different employers that you're applying to. But one thing is the same. Resumes mention the specific skills and accomplishments that you've developed and earned at past employers, and they're highly curated to match as closely as possible the job description for the position for which you're applying. Especially these days, it's not uncommon that an ATS will be parsing your resume before it even reaches a human's hands. The focus here is going to be on getting the language to mirror that of the job description as closely as possible to get past that first hurdle. For this reason, a CV length is going to be basically unlimited, whereas for your resume, a lot of times they're absolutely not going to want to see more than 2 pages. Some career counselors recommend only 1 page tops. The things that uh, your bullet points are going to focus on are going to differ as well between CVs and resumes. CVs, as I mentioned before, focus on your credentials. What are your degrees and your achievements? How many publications do you have? Where have you published? How many grants have you won and how much money have you earned from your grants? On the other hand, resumes are going to focus on your outcomes and your specific skills. What exactly do you do throughout the course of your day, and what are the results that you've obtained for your employer? For non-academic employers, even though you're going to format this in terms of the skills and accomplishments that you've developed and earned at previous employers, it's widely understood as a demonstration of what you're capable of doing because you've done it before. You demonstrate this through specific and explicit use of KPIs and other measurables. On the other hand, your academic CV, they're focused specifically on what you have done. And it's just implied that you're capable of doing it in the past because you've done it before. Let's contrast some more translations between academic CV bullet points and bullet points for an industry-focused resume. This one I took verbatim from my resume. What's different between these two formats describing the same experience? In my CV, I wrote that I taught undergraduate sociology courses as the instructor of record, both lower level and upper level courses. I developed the curriculum and graded um, exams and assignments. The CV normally just focuses on the specific classes I've taught and basic description of the role I played. The search committee isn't going to want to see how many students are in the class or what the average course grade was. Some of academic employers will ask for copies of my teaching evaluations, others won't. They'll just ask me in the interview if I should get that far. For a non-academic employer, I need to use active verbs. I designed and facilitated interactive learning experiences. I focus on what teaching entails. I actually facilitated those interactive learning experiences. That doesn't mean that I put in there that I developed curriculum, even though that's what I did. They want to know what the outcome of that is. It resulted in an interactive learning experience. They want to see as much achievements quantified as possible. 60 plus learners, average student grade of 86.9%, average student satisfaction score of 4.6 out of 5, which was the highest in the department. They want to see those accomplishments. They want to see those numbers. Now let's look at a sample bullet point we'd see from a student that works in a bench-based science. The CV will typically focus on the research that you performed and usually include specific descriptions of scientific discoveries as well as basic descriptions of the role you played. So you see here that this person contributed to and led multiple research programs on the redesign and synthesis of anti-tumor anthraquinone puroflavin A, working toward completion of the total synthesis of ET743 and additional analogs for biological evaluations and structural relationships. Now let's translate that for industry. We collaborated with the research team to ensure successful, timely project completion. Managed 15 junior team members to complete project deliverables in a timely fashion. We designed, tested, and revised 4 lab protocols and study designs. We produced 3 high-quality written deliverables meeting rigorous standards, and we've delivered 2 data-driven presentations to diverse audiences. You'll notice that for the resume, I avoided technical jargon. I focused on what the process entailed, each individual step that we took. We collaborated, we managed team members, we designed and tested and revised protocols and study designs. We wrote papers, we delivered presentations. All of these are going to make sense regardless of the specific context. So the specific form it takes will differ somewhat depending on the audience. I quantified as much as possible. Here, if you're applying for specifically a research and development arm, you might mention that this anti-tumor anthraquinone puroflavin A reduced tumor by 36%, if that's the case. You're not going to give as much detail on the specifics of the research unless you happen to know that you're applying for a research job on the same exact topic as this research. Unless I know I'm going to be working on anti-tumor anthraquinone puroflavin A or ET743, I'm not going to mention that here. I'm just going to make the description more widely applicable sounding. So I might describe it as something like pharmaceutical development. A lot of employers aren't going to care if you've published anything in peer-reviewed academic journals, though I will note the federal government does. A lot of private sector employers are going to be more concerned about you being able to write technical reports that are easily understood by non-academic audiences. You'll see here, I just limited my description of the publications to 3 high-quality written deliverables meeting rigorous standards. Over here, 3, I would actually specify each of the 3 peer-reviewed publications that I had. There's no need to mention the specific publications, no need to mention what the venues were. They just need to know that you've done it and how many that you've done. Here's another example that I, as a social scientist, took for my resume. This was talking about research in a social scientific setting. I investigated the relationship between X and Y, and that's what I've got on my academic CV for one of the projects that I worked on. When I translated that for my non-academic survey, I designed, pilot, and revised survey instruments to collect primary data, analyze complex data sets to identify trends and inform decisions. I visualize those data trends. I use data R and Python to do all this, and I perform advanced statistical analyses. Here you'll notice that, again, I itemized what are the specific steps I took to carry out this project. And I didn't include any detail on the specifics of the research because I knew for this example that where I was applying, it wasn't going to be relevant. So you're just going to want to focus on what the processes are that you're capable of doing. You want to focus on software and skills proficiency. If the job calls for knowledge of specific statistical techniques or software, you want to mention the specific software packages. Mention the procedures that you're capable of carrying out, especially if it's mentioned in the ad. On the other hand, if it's something like Microsoft Word or Google, unless the ad specifically mentions it, don't mention it in your resume because anybody with a high school degree is expected to have those competencies. So let's practice. Try writing a description of a recent project or a job task without using any disciplinary or academic jargon. Just explain your work as if you're talking to your 5-year-old nephew about your job. Also, try to describe the impact this project or job had for your team, your department, or your company. So just pause this video, and then when you're done writing that statement, come back to this. And think about, what story about your skills and motivations are you trying to tell? Does this translation feel authentic to your values and story? If not, you might want to play around with it. Try it out on some people and get their feedback and see what they think, and then tweak it a little bit. What phrases felt natural to you? What was difficult for you to convey authentically? And finally, and most importantly, what kind of impact are you highlighting? Does this impact matter to others? Does it matter to yourself? That's important as well. Now let's help you convey your value from your CV. Refer back to your CV and select one bullet point from it that you think showcases your academic talents most well. And this could be something related to your research, your teaching, or any service or leadership positions you've had. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but I'd like you to choose something that a non-academic employer might not immediately understand without translation, because we're actually going to work on translating it. Now, rewrite that bullet by reflecting on the following. What did you actually do? What was the process that went into this accomplishment? What skills does this demonstrate? Try to find at least 2 or 3 of those and refer back to those prior slides. If you need help. Who or what benefited? And can you think of any quantifiable achievements? Try formatting your statement in this format. I used blank skill to do blank, and I did this to meet X goal, resulting in whatever the quantifiable achievement is, if it's applicable. So remember, resumes need to be customized to the specific employer and job description. It's absolutely normal to have a slightly different version for each application you file. Think of resume preparation as a sort of prototyping. You're experimenting to see what language lands with employers and adjusting your approach accordingly and customizing your approach for each employer. In addition to going back and looking through the earlier slides on this PowerPoint, you can refer to the worksheet entitled Transferable Skills Sought After by Non-Academic Employers, which you can find on the Hub site for some hints. I've linked this worksheet in the description below, or you can find it in the Worksheets folder. Now you're going to rewrite that statement using bullet points, active verbs, and mentioning clear outcomes and impact. And you're going to string those together, action verb plus skill plus context plus outcome. You'll see here one more example. You conducted qualitative analysis of ethnographic field data using grounded theory methodology. That would be something that you'd show in your CV. You're going to translate that for your resume to analyze complex data sets to identify patterns and insights that inform decision making. Finally, I would like you to look back at your original CV line and your translated version. Think about what skills were you able to identify most clearly, and what skills did you have trouble identifying? Where could this be clearer or more concrete? Can you think of anything that you might have missed? And finally, how did this exercise feel for you while you were going through it? Did you observe your thinking changing as a result of this exercise? Did you like what you heard here today and you want more? Check our website for more resources. You can attend a workshop in person, or you can contact me, Tracy, for one-on-one coaching. I would love to know what you thought of this workshop and what you'd like to see in the future. Please complete this short evaluation by scanning the QR code to the right. We greatly appreciate your honest and thoughtful feedback to help us improve our programming for the future. And finally, there's my contact information if you need it. Have a wonderful day.